Deveraux Cannick defends his strategy of attacking the singer's accusers. Quote, "I don't even think it was a Me Too issue," unquote. Defense lawyer Deveraux Cannick questioned the credibility of Rkelly's accusers during his trial. Numerous women and 2 men testified that the singer abused them. A jury ultimately convicted Kelly on all counts. Cannick defends his tactics in an interview, claiming Kelly's relationships were consensual. A defense lawyer for Rkelly, who tried to discredit nearly every accuser in the singer's crimes, told Insider he still believes the client had consensual relationship with many of the witnesses who testified he abused them. Last month, Kelly, whose real name is Robert Sylvester Kelly, was convicted of racketeering for essentially running a criminal organization to procure people and violating the Mann Act, which forbids bringing people across state lines for illegal acts. Quote, "These people were in relationships with him," unquote, the singer's lawyer Deveraux Cannick said. Quote, "And whatever you may have thought of that relationship, this was a relationship that they bought into, they consented, and these were long-standing relationships. I don't even think it was a Me Too issue," unquote. Many of the accusers who testified against Kelly said they met him when they were teenagers. Several testified that they met with the towering R&B figure with the exception that he'd watched their auditions and hoped he'd advance their music careers. Gloria Allred, who represents 3 witnesses in the trial, told journalists after the verdict that Kelly's use of fame and money to indoctrinate and punish the victims made him the worst predator she has ever pursued. First, he used the power of his celebrity to recruit vulnerable underage people for the purpose of abusing them, the attorney said. Second, he used the power of his business enterprise and many of his inner circle employees to assist him and enable him with his plan. As prosecutors questioned the 9 women and 2 men about their encounters with Kelly and their stories of abuse, Cannick was a person who had the task of raising questions about whether Kelly pursued those accusers or the accusers pursued Kelly. Of the 4 people on Kelly's legal team, he appeared to do most of the work, cross-examining almost every witness prosecutors brought and conducting the direct examination of every defense witness. Cannick told Insider his goal was to try to show the jurors that the witnesses were not credible, arguing that the prosecutors went after Kelly because of the attention brought from Lifetime's Surviving R. Kelly's document series. Many of the people who accused Kelly of abuse in the documentary also testified against him in the trial. According to Cannick, Kelly's relationship with his girlfriends, many of which he had simultaneously, were each independent of one another. They were basically stringing a bunch of independent relationships together. He said, adding, "I hope the jury would be strong enough to see the witnesses were not credible and it was not a credible case." The jurors disagreed, finding Kelly guilty on all counts. Cannick tried to discredit accusers who said Kelly abused them. Cannick gave the defense team's closing statements, arguing that Kelly's love life may have been unusual but not criminal. He involved Martin Luther King Jr., paraphrasing, "I've been to the mountaintop," and asking jurors to acquit Kelly. Quote, "I don't think it takes a great deal of courage to tell the government that you're wrong," unquote, Cannick said. Quote, "And I think what better example of that courage than Dr. King? He's my hero," unquote. Judge Ann Donnelly, who oversaw the trial, stopped Cannick several times while he questioned witnesses, including on occasions when he tried to ask about statements they made or may have made on Surviving R. Kelly. According to Cannick, the defense lawyers couldn't use all the evidence they wanted in the trial. He claims that notes FBI agents took while interviewing accusers told more complicated or contradictory stories about when Kelly's multiple girlfriends. Geronda Pace had no relationship with the singer and was a mere groupie. Cannick said even she testified under oath that she had an abusive relationship with Kelly for 9 months. Cannick alleged that the parents of another woman, who testified under a pseudonym, directed her to pursue Kelly. The woman testified that Kelly repeatedly abused her over the years, gave her an STD, made her eat trash on camera, and made her get an abortion, all while promising they had a future together. While cross-examining the accuser, Cannick grilled her about whether she was twerking at a concert where she first met Rkelly. He told Insider his questions were an attempt to demonstrate to the jury that Kelly wasn't preying on women, but they had pursued him as well. This was no targeting, Cannick told Insider. People were trying to get his attention as much as he was trying to get their attention. She was on the speaker dancing in that way to get his attention. Quote, it's as if we took a time machine to court back in the 1950s, unquote, prosecutor Nadia Shahada said in closing arguments. Quote, what they're basically arguing is that all these women and girls were asking for it, and that they deserve what they got. Kelly himself ultimately declined to testify in the case. Cannick told Insider, quote, a part of him really wanted to testify, unquote, before the singer decided against it. Aside from Kelly's guilty verdict in New York, he faces a separate set of charges from federal prosecutors in Chicago, as well as state-level charges in Illinois and Minnesota. He's pleaded not guilty to all charges against him. Kelly plans to appeal the verdict against him and is, quote, hopefully that an appeal court will see it the way we saw it, unquote, Cannick said. Quote, he was disappointed, but he knows that he gets to live for another day, unquote. Cannick said, that's the verdict now. The process continues.